Tonight, Toyota says bring them back. The world's largest car maker launches a recall of more than 4 million vehicles to correct a problem blamed for an horrific accident. I'm Harry Smith. Also tonight, the great holiday getaway. Or is it? Turns out today is not the busiest travel day of the year. And wait till you hear what really is. Belt-tightening time on Capitol Hill? Hardly. Members are handing out earmarks and sticking you with the tab. We'll follow the money. And a top-notch chef serves up a healthy helping of the American spirit.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening. Katie is off tonight. Our top story begins with a frantic call to 911 made from a car speeding out of control. The gas pedal is stuck. The driver can't stop. It all leads to a deadly crash and now to a massive recall. National correspondent Jim Axelrod has the story.
Toyota, which built its reputation on safety and quality, now says it knows how to fix the problem behind the biggest recall in its history. The automaker will redesign accelerator pedals in 4 million Toyotas and Lexuses, including the Camry, America's top-selling car, 436,000 sold in 2008, and the Prius, the best-selling hybrid. The trouble is, in Toyota vehicles like this 2009 Tacoma pickup truck, the gas pedal can get tangled up in the floor mat, causing the vehicle to speed up. Even if the driver pumps the brakes, it's not enough to stop. 5 deaths have been blamed on this unintended acceleration, and the recall was prompted by a crash outside San Diego last summer that killed 4 family members.
Our accelerator's stuck.
The family's horrifying last moments captured in this 911 call.
We're in trouble. There's no brake. We're approaching intersection. Hold on. Pray. Oh, shoot.
The redesigned pedals will be ready for installation beginning next April. In the meantime, Toyota will recall the cars and shorten the accelerator 3/4 of an inch, perhaps as early as January, so the mat can slide under it without trapping it.
Simply put, Toyota's engineers weren't up to the job on this one.
While Toyota says it's very, very confident the problem's been addressed, safety expert Clarence Ditlow says Toyota still has more work to do on the electronic connection between the throttle and accelerator pedal.
Some of this is clearly due to the electronic controls in the vehicle.
In fact, Toyota is doing more work, planning to install a system sometime next year so that if the brake and gas pedals are pushed at the same time, the brake wins. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
President Obama will be heading back overseas in 2 weeks. He will attend a climate conference in Denmark where he will commit to cutting harmful emissions in the United States by 17% over the next decade. Then it's on to Norway to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. The White House also confirmed the president will present his new Afghan strategy next Tuesday in a primetime address. More now from Chief White House correspondent Chip Reid.
Speaking to West Point cadets and a primetime television audience, the president Tuesday will try to convince a deeply skeptical American public that the 8-year war in Afghanistan is still necessary, that Americans will not be safe until al-Qaeda is destroyed in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and that it will take 30,000 or more troops to finish the job. The White House says he will outline not just how to get those troops in, but how he hopes to get them out.
First and foremost, he will say that we will not be there forever, that this is not an open-ended commitment.
Gibbs vigorously denied predictions by some military experts that U.S. troops will be in Afghanistan for 8 or 9 more years. He said the president will argue that that kind of commitment would be unsustainable in terms of the numbers of Americans killed and wounded and the monetary cost, which officials say is $1 million a year for each additional troop. With Americans losing confidence in the president's handling of the war, only 23% believe it's going well. Analysts say he must convince the public that it will not become a quagmire.
That we aren't simply going to throw resources, blood and treasure into Afghanistan until the end of time.
In case the war does bog down, the president will outline what the White House calls exit ramps, plans to get the troops out of Afghanistan earlier than anticipated. But critics say once those troops are in, getting them out will be harder than anyone here at the White House imagines.
Chip Reed at the White House tonight. Thank you. It is Thanksgiving Eve, and a lot of Americans are heading out of town. A AAA survey finds 38 million of us will be traveling more than 50 miles this weekend. That's down 20 million from 4 years ago. Nancy Cordes has more now about the myths and reality of Getaway Day.
As we all know by now, the day before Thanksgiving is the busiest air travel day of the year. Or is it?
In reality, the day before Thanksgiving is not the busiest day of the year.
In fact, according to official government data, when it comes to the number of airline flights, today doesn't even rank among the top 25 busiest days. Back in 2006, it came in 36th. In 2007, it was 55th. And last year, as the economy took a turn for the worse, there were 220 days with more flights than the day before Thanksgiving.
It's a myth. It's one of those things that people expect the airports to be crazy. There's a lot of people traveling, but it is not the worst day of the year.
So if today isn't the busiest travel day of the year, then what is? The day before Christmas, perhaps? Maybe Memorial Day?
The busiest travel days of the year are real simple. Fridays, June, July, and August.
That's right. Last year, the number one day was Friday, July 18th. The day before, well, Saturday. There were 21,128 flights that day, 2,200 more than on the day before Thanksgiving.
I arrived here almost 2 hours early, anticipating crazy airport traffic, and I was shocked to pull up and see no one.
I mean, there's not even anyone standing in line here.
I know, I was blown away. I mean, thrilled, but blown away.
This is wonderful. It looks like we're going to be in what, 10, 15 minutes max.
And consider this, while AAA estimates that 2.3 million Americans will fly this holiday weekend, that's down 62% from 9 years ago, more than 33 million will drive, which means, as usual, the worst congestion will be on the road, not in the skies. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Washington.
Citigroup, which got a huge taxpayer bailout, is returning the favor. The company says it saved about 130,000 homeowners from foreclosure in the third quarter of this year by modifying their mortgages. That's 15 homes rescued for every one foreclosure. And the government reported today that sales of new homes shot up more than 6% last month as first-time buyers took advantage of a special tax credit. With 29 shopping days till Christmas, Anthony Mason tells us a new kind of store is popping up all over town.
Just off Fifth Avenue on some of Manhattan's priciest real estate, eBay was rapidly setting up shop last week. Almost overnight, the internet site establishing its first retail presence.
It's a different way of looking at eBay, a different way of engaging in eBay.
It's an attempt to create some excitement in a slow retail season, part of a growing shopping phenomenon realtors call the pop-up store.
It means it's here today and may be gone tomorrow.
This pop-up store was entirely empty when eBay began setting up here on a Monday. By the end of the week, it was open for business. But all this will only be here for 10 days. Why only 10 days?
Well, the whole idea is to create that energy moment.
Alan Marks says eBay's also wheeling out a mobile pop-up shop to a dozen cities. Veteran retailers are doing it too. Toys R Us already has nearly 600 stores, but they've opened 80 more just for the holiday season. Is this the most pop-ups you've ever had?
This is by far the most pop-ups we've ever had.
CEO Jerry Storch says the economy is driving the trend.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
The fact that the economy is difficult right now made some better sites available that might have been difficult to find before.
New York realtor Faith Hope Consolo says landlords wouldn't listen before.
They used to hang up, oh, what do you want, a short-term deal? We don't want a pop-up store. Now they're not only listening, they're contributing.
At this Gap pop-up, the store actually stays, but the merchandise and theme change every 5 weeks.
And when we can surprise people and give them something they didn't expect, it really creates a lot of buzz for us.
With pop-ups, retailers are hoping they can turn that buzz into business. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
At the White House today, President Obama continued a Thanksgiving tradition. He ensured that a 45-pound gobbler named Courage, presented to him by the National Turkey Federation, will not be on the menu tomorrow by granting it a full, free, and absolute pardon at the urging of his daughters.
Thanks to the interventions of Malia and Sasha, because I was planning to eat this sucker. Courage will also be spared this terrible and delicious fate. Later today, he'll head to Disneyland, where he'll be Grand Marshal of tomorrow's parade. You know, there are certain days that remind me of why I ran for this office. And then there are moments like this, where I pardon a turkey and send it to Disneyland. Courage, you are hereby pardoned. You will live in Disneyland.
The bird is safe. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, who says cash is tight in Washington? We'll follow the money as Congress spends billions of your tax dollars on pet projects. Like George W. Bush before him, President Obama has declared war on earmarks, funding for special projects that end up costing taxpayers billions. But Congress still hasn't gotten the message. The new defense budget is once again chock full of them. Here's Cheryl Atkinson with tonight's Follow the Money.
The U.S. is now $12 trillion in debt, but some in Congress don't seem too concerned. They just added billions of dollars onto next year's Pentagon budget in the form of earmarks. The 2010 Defense Department budget starts at a whopping $623 billion. Added to that are 1,858 earmarks. They equal $5 billion tax dollars devoted to pet projects of individual members of Congress.
With an earmark, how many senators or members of Congress does it take to approve multi-million-dollar projects?
One. Senator Tom Coburn is against earmarking altogether, saying it's fraught with conflicts of interest. Party leaders and those on the appropriations committees get the lion's share of earmarks.
And the appropriators reign supreme because they're like pirates who divide up the bounty and share it among themselves.
This is the stack of earmarks tacked onto next year's defense budget without the normal public review. None of these add-ons was deemed important enough to be included in the regular budget, and a lot of the companies getting your tax dollars, they have campaign ties to the congressman giving the earmark.
For example, Congressman Neil Abercrombie awarded Pacific Biodiesel a $3.5 million earmark to try to grow fuel for the Army in Hawaii. Turns out the founder of Pacific Biodiesel is a co-chair of the congressman's newest campaign. He's running for governor of Hawaii. And the pattern is repeated over and over. Abercrombie also gets donations from defense contractor BAE. BAE gets a defense earmark for mammal awareness. Congressman Rodney Frelinghuysen receives thousands from defense contractor Honeywell. He gives Honeywell a $2 million earmark to develop specialized ink. Honeywell's lobby firm happens to be managed by the congressman's former chief of staff. Congressman Robert Aderholt gets donations from the founder of Victory Solutions and from Miltech. Each of those companies gets an earmark. Frelinghuysen had no comment. Abercrombie and Aderholt told us there's no link between donations and earmarks and that they award earmarks that will be of benefit and save lives. At least one congressman is bucking the trend. John Adler has taken the unusual step of returning more than $6,000 in donations from a list of lobbyists and others who benefited from his earmark requests. Last week, Senator Coburn proposed giving up all earmarks and using the money to expand veterans' benefits.
So I believe that we ought to pay for what we're going to do.
Not surprisingly, Coburn's idea fell to overwhelming defeat, proving that even in hard economic times, it's still easy for Congress to spend your money. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington.
Something strange is happening to the fish in America's rivers, lakes, and ponds. The males are increasingly taking on female characteristics. National correspondent Dean Reynolds tells us pollution may be to blame, and experts believe it might be an early warning for us.
The fish are biting on Lake Pepin this fall. Good news for Minnesota fishing guide Lauren Walkins.
We aren't going to call it a big one, but it's a smallmouth.
A smallmouth bass, to be exact, and along with its largemouth cousin, a big business fish.
How do you like me now? Oh, yeah!
It's hooked anglers at tournaments as hyped as the Super Bowl.
He's at the top of the leaderboard.
And it's also a fish of special value to researchers.
$3.30.
Who suspect it may tell us something alarming about our water. Which brings us to Columbia, Missouri, and these ponds. Here, the U.S. Geological Survey is investigating why so many males in the pond show female characteristics.
Because it's a male, you're seeing sperm here, but oddly, you're also seeing very small, undeveloped eggs.
And that's an abnormality.
We would not expect to see eggs in a male.
Abnormal, but increasingly common. In the upper Mississippi River, where Lauren Walkins fishes, more than 70% of the male smallmouth bass had female characteristics. In South Carolina's Petey River, the ratio was even higher, 9 out of 10. And in one section of the Potomac River near Washington, every smallmouth bass had the same condition. In fact, a recent USGS study found the phenomenon in virtually every watershed in the country. The suspicion is that hormone-disrupting chemicals in the water, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, including birth control pills, may be prompting the feminization of the fish. And that matters because in controlled experiments, which duplicated the chemicals found in U.S. rivers, entire populations of fish simply collapsed, unable to spawn. What's more, tens of millions of Americans get their drinking water from rivers, an estimated 18 million from the Mississippi River alone.
Makes me wonder what else could be affected here.
Walkins wonders if his beloved bass could be the proverbial canary in the coal mine.
Are there other species and other types of animals that this may be occurring in? You know, there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Questions whose answers may lie somewhere beneath the surface of the water we drink. Dean Reynolds, CBS News, Columbia, Missouri.
A Swiss daredevil almost made history today with custom-made jet-powered wings strapped to his body. 50-year-old Yves Rossi leaped from a plane and attempted to soar 24 miles from Morocco to Spain. Everything was going well until he flew into clouds so thick he couldn't tell up from down and had to abort. Rescuers found him in the North Atlantic safe and sound. He vows to try again. Up next on the evening news, a chef with a special recipe of the American spirit. Finally tonight, we're on the eve of a holiday that centers around good food, gratitude for the gifts we've been given, and sharing them with others. John Blackstone found all of those ingredients in one very special chef who's cooking up the American spirit.
Elegant place settings are not out of place for Chef Tim Hammock. For a while, he worked at Bouchon, famous for fine food in the Napa Valley.
He could be anywhere in the world right now. He can be at a top-notch restaurant in New York or San Francisco, but he's here.
Here, in a homeless shelter.
This is our take on a zuppa fajol.
He's now chef in a soup kitchen with a difference.
And if you were serving a bowl of this in Napa, what would be the price tag on the menu, probably?
Oh, maybe 12, 15 bucks.
Same thing here?
Here, priceless.
As a full-time employee of the Bay Area Rescue Mission in Richmond, California, Chef Tim's paycheck is about half of what it was at a top-end restaurant.
I was, frustrated with where I was and just, serving people that were extremely wealthy that they seemingly don't have a care in the world.
Those who end up homeless here in Richmond, California have seldom experienced the finer things in life. Chef Tim is trying to change that, one meal at a time.
This is going to be a tzatziki. It's a cucumber yogurt sauce with a little garlic and mint and parsley.
He serves up to 1,200 meals a day from whatever is donated.
We never really know from day to day what we're going to get, so it's kind of like triage at a hospital. We separate the good, the bad, the ugly, and we make do with what we've got.
He also makes do with some unusual kitchen helpers.
Well, I was like a functioning addict.
I came straight here from jail. Watch what I do.
Chef Tim teaches cooking as part of a drug recovery program.
Leave that tip on, right there.
Can you change people's lives through food?
I really believe so.
Some of the guys have been really surprised by what we've been doing in here. They thought we were just going to do beans and rice.
Salad bar, all the good stuff.
The diners here admit this isn't the food they're used to, but they do keep coming back for more.
This is top quality stuff here. How's the food?
It's all good.
Well, we got a top-notch Tim the chef in there. He's pretty good.
Fewer than 1 in 3 of those who train in the kitchen completes the recovery program. But those who do make it are the reason Chef Tim has taken the heat in this kitchen for 8 years.
I felt like I was making a difference in the world, so that's why I stayed.
He's cooking up hope and serving it fresh to those who need it most. John Blackstone, CBS News, Richmond, California.
And if you know someone who embodies the American spirit, please go to cbsnews.com and let us know. That's the CBS Evening News. For Katie Couric, I'm Harry Smith. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you first thing Thanksgiving morning on The Early Show. Have a good night.